If you want to get going, you need a way to get there. You need to get to go. You need a Waymo to go. Go, Waymo, go. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. I like having fun. It's what I do. So we've got some big Waymo news this week, but before I get to it,
Yeah.
I wanted to say that next stop, Miami. They're rolling out in Miami. What do you think of this? I mean, we've got Phoenix, we've got parts of California along the coast, both Los Angeles and San Francisco. We've got Arizona, where it's going to be in a fleet partnership with Move, which is, I think,
very interesting about their partnership approach. So Waymo, it's owned by Google and our Alphabet, right?
Mhm.
And Sanjay Pichai was out, the CEO of Alphabet, and he said that they're very excited. They feel like Waymo is going to be expanded to multiple cities, and you're going to announce shortly as well that they just made the announcement about going to Japan shortly. We'll cover that a little bit more. So they're expanding. And then he said, he was asked, who's your main competitor? He said Tesla is definitely a leader in the space. They think that they're a leader.
Well, this is exciting. Now open to all in Los Angeles. You don't need to be on a beta. And if you see one of these cars, it's tough to tell, but it is autonomous. You can almost make out the sensors.
You always say
I
that.
love that. It's so fun because
it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. It's very subtle with $100,000 of sensors.
Yeah, this is obviously this thing, right? Okay, so Waymo, we know what happened to Cruise. GM decided that they're going to abandon Cruise because it cost them. They were spending $2.7 billion last year, like $1.7 billion this year. They had to, obviously they had to let go of their executive team because they were, right? They lied to the California government when their car, the robotaxi dragged a woman in San Francisco. So they dropped Cruise. Waymo is expanding, but people don't realize that they only have 700 cars. 700. So yes, they are expanding. That's great. And yes, they are a paid robotaxi ride. And so for that reason, you can definitely call them the leader in the space. Them and Baidu and other Chinese companies that are already giving robotaxi rides. Many people don't understand and realize it, that majority of the time, and I don't know the exact number because they don't release it, it's being teleoperated. So you walk into a Waymo, you use your app, you call the Waymo, it comes in, there's no driver there, and you go, oh my God, this is such a great experience. What they don't tell you is that there's a big significant amount of time that there's a teleoperator somewhere else in the world dialing in with a joystick, controlling the car. They don't tell you that. They had to report that, so they kind of use language to say that we are doing that, but they don't try to tell you how many. Now, why do they only have 700? Why do they take so long to expand? Well, because it's so freaking expensive for them. Not only the car, right, rumored to be $250,000,
but the operators.
Despite them introducing a new Waymo Generation 6 they reduce the sensors, but it's still so expensive. It's the operators, right? And so how do you expand if it's working already and it's like you perfected things and you've shown it, you got paid robotaxi rides and all that. Why aren't you expanding to thousands? So yes, they're expanding cities, but they only have 700. What happens when Tesla comes in there? Now, Waymo, there's recent release data came out last week when they showed that in San Francisco, November 2023, when Waymo didn't exist, Lyft and Uber. Lyft had like about 35% of the market. Uber had the rest in San Francisco. When the following year and Waymo arrived, Lyft and Waymo are the same at 22%. And they brought down Uber by 1/6, but they brought down Lyft by a third. And so basically, immediately, Waymo is now a competitor to these guys. So that's a clear indicator that a robotaxi that comes in, and by the way, the Waymo is more expensive, comes in and it can disrupt these guys. But they're too expensive. And so, I made a joke and I posted it and people assumed that I was a Tesla Q. And I said, I don't know if you saw this. I said,
I didn't.
I said, oh, Tesla investors are idiots. Don't they realize that Waymo and Baidu are so far ahead? but there's actually one company that has already today 10 million paid robotaxi rides already.
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland. Yes, they're geographically limited, but wait till they scale.
Wait till Disneyland scales. They're going to go to the red lot. They're going to go to
robotaxi rides,
the
right?
blue lot. I assume actually all the lots have Disney themed names.
But that's
now
the
that
point,
I
right? These cars are in a geographic kind of jail, and they're taking you around in like, you know, these kind of like, you already heard the Waymo co-CEO, and she was interviewed and she said, yeah, we purposely chose, you know, the grid cities because that was just the easiest, right? The grid cities. And so,
Yeah.
yes, it's impressive, but it's also not that impressive. So
it's I understand. And by the way, they should have known that that wasn't a real Tesla Q statement, because as silly as it wasn't quite dumb enough. They would. It had a nugget of truth to it. Waymo to begin testing in Tokyo, its first international destination. That sounds good. It sounds everything is solved. We've solved everything. Yeah. Just pick a new city and boom, out you go. It's not that easy, is it?
No. So if you read into the article some more, what they basically have done is they've partnered with a taxi operator first and this app, taxi app called Go. And basically what's going to happen is that these taxi operators are going to drive these Jaguar vehicles. They're going to just drive them. That's it. So nothing new, nothing. It's not yet Robotaxi RL. And they need to drive it for the next 6 months to then map out the location. So the expense here, they have to probably pay this taxi operator money to do this on their behalf, right? Why would a taxi operator allow you to do that? You're being paid to do this. Once they, and by the way, in the other article, you're talking about these partnerships that these guys do. I mean, they're handing off a lot of their business to partners, which is fine. Nothing against that, but just keep that in mind. You're already not making any money. You're already loss leader. You're paying these partners. So they're paying these guys, the taxi operators, to map this area, and then they'll have to go through the process of getting certified there. And it's their first time that's going to be in a left-hand. Kind of a vehicle setup,
right?
But it's just this whole concept of how would Tesla do this? Well, they already have Teslas in those cities, and they already have owners of those Teslas in those cities, and they don't have to pay those owners. In fact, those owners paid Tesla thousands of dollars to have full self-driving on there. It's just unbelievable, the different business models. And then that's how they map a city. And then they have automated, like machine learning and autonomy to be able to figure out how to drive in any city, any location, any style. They're using data and computers to do this.
I think you're overlooking the easiest way to, get data for mapping is like this. By getting stuck in a roundabout 37 times. We have fun. Waymo first responder program sets safety standard. This is kind of nice. Waymo's first responder program has been validated in Europe. So the idea is it needs to say that, they needed certification for that, and they got it. I think that's great. I don't think we need to say
what's a first responder program?
Oh, first responder program validated, leads the way in safety for. I love it. In safety for autonomous vehicles. So basically, it has to be able to recognize and behave appropriately.
Emergency vehicles.
Vehicles. Yeah. Fire trucks, etc.
And this is where what you don't know is whether or not the AI of the Waymo is able to recognize this, or if it's really just a teleoperator that then takes over. There are rules about when you have to tell the government, right, the regulators, whether or not it was teleoperator or not, it was an intervention or not, disengagement or not. And apparently it's not a call to disengagement if all the teleoperator need to do is press a button versus actually driving a car, like taking over with a joystick to drive the car. So if they see that there is a emergency vehicle and they just press a button saying, okay, stop the car, that's not an intervention.
or if they tap a screen that says select path
Yeah.
C instead of A or B, my
Yeah.
friends, I think
Yeah.
you and I
So that Waymo going
are in
around and around and
agreement.
around and around, teleoperator goes in there and goes, okay, we'll get out of here now. Press the button. That's not a disengagement. So
You and I think, are in agreement that that's nonsense. That is absolutely an engage. Okay, fine.
just to
Yes.
be clear, though, Tesla will need to do this too.
Oh, yes, of course.
To be very, very clear, I'm not making fun of teleoperators. All Teslas, when they go to robotaxi paid program in California or Texas, they will need to start with teleoperators. But it's just that the point was it's designed that they'll much more quickly not need teleoperators for,
Right.
I'm going to say 1 in 3 cars. It could be done at 120, whatever, maybe even like less.
1 in 100, 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And I think Waymo's getting there, but too slowly. And I think it is evidenced by the pace of expansion. Looking at this here, you brought this up earlier. Google CEO says Tesla leads while his Waymo follows. Now,
That's not exactly true. Because I listened very carefully to that interview and replayed it a few times, and it does sound like
is a leader
yeah,
in the space. And I would point out, I periodically have to deal with people on social media who work for rival autonomous companies who are angry and bitter that they do not work for Tesla. And they will say that Tesla is a laughing stock. It is the joke of the autonomous industry. And I said, it isn't. It isn't. I've talked to a lot of these people. And while some of them will say, I believe Tesla's approach is absolutely the wrong one, they don't say it's a joke. They don't say it's a laughing stock. They say, I'm not convinced that this will scale the way Tesla needs it to. That is very different, a very different statement. And I think, yeah, it is clearly being at least recognized by very important people.
Yeah. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang just said it recently as well. Tesla's the leader. It doesn't. We don't need them to say this. We don't need to. We know that we know what's the real scenario here. So we drive it. You drive it. You know whether or not these cars can do this.
Yeah. Well, there were people saying that it was solved a year, 2 years ago, and maybe for them they believed that, but I did not share that conclusion because it didn't work. Didn't work for me. And you also mentioned this, the 6th gen Waymo driver optimized for her pleasure.
So the cost is so high, and so they have these new generation hardware and they roll it out. And guess what they say? We need to cut sensors. So guess what? They're going to need to cut all LiDAR away. And just, another great report that we could have done is summarize all the LiDAR companies out there that are dying and failed, and all of the auto companies out there who basically have switched away from LiDAR to vision only. They're all, many of them are doing it one after another.
Yes. And yeah, that's a lot of research, but it'd be an interesting report to do. Guys, in the comments, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Head over to Brighter, see what Herbert's up to, and everybody else. Like, subscribe. You know what you have to do. Comments, at least for the holidays, have to be mandatory. They just have to. It is not my choice. I'm a victim here too, so I feel your pain. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the Flippity Flop.